We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Lee Overstreet, pinch hitting this week, not for Tom.
There we go. The impossible has happened. I am here without Rob. I didn't think it was possible for me to be here without Rob, but events have conspired against us. If you follow us on Facebook, you will have seen that Rob posted. He's got some family stuff that he's dealing with. So we wish Rob and his family all the best, but we soldier on without him this week, giving him a week off to deal with all the stuff he needs to deal with, and we'll hopefully see him back next week.
Am I correct? We both must be slightly uncomfortable that he's not here.
Well, so he was trying to, even in the midst of what he had going on, he was trying to soldier through and get the questions list ready. I'm like, Rob, let's be honest. Even if I and Lee go through and answer all these questions without you, even if we did, you would just want to answer him again the next time you were on the podcast. Because
he'd have a little something to add to every answer. Let me just go back and where you said this.
Yeah. Let me tell you all the things you were wrong about, Tom, and add my 2 cents about this. I'm like, let's just not do that.
Here's the concern I have. You and I haven't done the podcast, have we? Just you and I?
I think we have. I think we have. I think before Rob was around. Yeah,
maybe before Rob. I think since Rob, it's never been just you and I.
No,
or you and me. That's a grammatical thing. I always hate when I say you and I when I should say you and me. Anyway,
yeah, all right.
I'm just concerned that our combined cynicism will do something weird to the podcast. Like Rob is like the bright shining light of Canadian happiness, and we're like the southeastern hot angry people.
We might find that the podcast is much more popular when it's just you and I. Who knows?
Maybe the ranting is going to happen a lot more this week. I feel.
So what I decided was to put together a Decade in Review podcast. So we're going to talk about this week some of the technologies that have shaped the 2010s. Is that what we're calling it? Is the 2010s?
I think we're calling it the 2010s or the 10s or the teens. Well, not really the teens, right? Because 10, 11, and 12 weren't teens.
The tweens. The tweens. Tweenies. I don't know. Who cares?
The 2010s.
So we're going to talk about some of the Decade in Review, and then we're going to do a little speculation on the future at the end of this podcast. But before we get into that, this is AVRant, the podcast that normally answers your home theater and AV questions. We do answer them in order as they come in, and so we will be answering your questions that came in over the break. For those of you who have just started listening to the podcast because we had a couple of interviews, that's not normally what we do. We did that because there's going to Christmas and New Year's and everything, we needed some time off. So we recorded a couple of interviews ahead of time and got those all set up. Next week, probably, I would imagine, we will be back on track to answer your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You can go to avrant.com and leave us a comment there. Go to facebook.com/AVRant podcast. We are very active on Facebook. YouTube.com/AVRant for our videos. I don't know if this episode will have a video because we're not recording any video. So there may be a logo.
I turned my lights on and put on a nice shirt just in case.
Did you start recording your video?
I don't really have a good way to do that. So we're not doing anything.
We're not recording video, Rob.
I'll tell you what, I'll take a selfie and we can post that.
There you go.
I'll do that.
That's clearly
because that's a
what
thing
we
all do now. That really started in the 2010s. I don't think I took a selfie before 2010, except for the oddball silliness of just wasting a frame of film.
Right.
I think I did that maybe back
film.
in the day.
You remember
I remember film.
I do. Yeah. Let's see here. If you want to contact Rob or I directly, you can go to his email is rob@avrant.com. His Twitter is @FirstReflect. I'm Tom @avrant.com. My Twitter is @avrant_Tom. I can't believe you're taking the selfie right now. What is wrong with you? The man wastes no time. Lee, how can people get in contact with you?
You can find me on Twitter. I am @LeeOvertweet.
At Lee Overtweet.
At Lee Overtweet, because my name's Overstreet.
Yeah,
so clever.
It's very clever. It's quite clever, I'm sure.
It's incredibly clever.
Yes. All right, let's get into this podcast here. So, yes.
Right.
First of all,
this is a great topic because honestly, like my wife and I just talked about this recently about how, compared to 2010, how is our life any different? And for us, most stuff in our life is not any different. We live in the same house. We drive the same cars. We had high-def TVs in 2010, and we still have them. And, had a receiver with surround sound. I still have a receiver with surround sound. Just a lot about life is actually pretty similar. But then you get down to details in the technology, and it's not exactly similar. And the habits are very different because of these stupid smartphone things that I was just playing with, taking a stupid selfie. Why do I do that now?
I don't know. I don't know why you're doing it right now. I know I know that you are. I don't know exactly why.
It's my first AVRant selfie. It must mean something for the 2020s.
Quite literally the first AVRant selfie I think that's ever been taken on this podcast. So there you go.
See, and that's a new thing for the 2020. So what did you have in your home theater situation? What was your TV situation in 2010?
2010. So my youngest son would have been 1. We would have been in Australia. So not only am I still rocking the same speakers, which I am, I have added some speakers to the system since then. I've added subs, but I had 2 subs. They were just 2 different subs. I've added upgraded receivers, but again, like you said, I actually still have the same projector I was using. I'm not using it anymore, but that's something I'm going to talk about with Rob next podcast. But I hooked it up recently and was appalled at the picture. I was like, how did I live with this? And my son, I was so proud. My 13-year-old son looked at it and went, Daddy, what's wrong with the picture? I'm like, it's just so bad.
Oh, I know that feeling.
But it was high def. It's high def.
Yeah.
It's just the black levels are garbage, and the color is not great, and the brightness sucks. And it was at the time a very good projector. Very good projector.
We started 2010 with a 50-inch plasma in the living room, and it was already a few years old when we got that thing. We were the coolest kids on the block.
Yeah.
And we also had, and it was like $3,200. And in our den, we had a little 32-inch high-def TV, an LCD, and that thing was like $1,600 when we got it in 2006.
Yeah.
And we were like, people thought we were insane. What is this magical futuristic house? And the similar thing to your old projector, both of those TVs have been unplugged now because in 2019, we finally replaced them both. The plasma with an OLED, because you can't go from plasma to anything other than an OLED. Yeah. And the LCD with a much better... It turns out much better. I thought not very much better. But anyway, the point was, recently I plugged back in those old TVs and looked at them. I'm like, wow, that really wasn't as good as I thought it was.
Yes, but nobody's looking at their speakers going, ooh, these have really not aged too well, have they? they're all pretty much the same good as they were.
Is it weird that my speakers are 20 years old? They sound great.
It's weird that you don't have 2 subwoofers. Yes,
that is weird.
I will
always. Weird.
I will never be okay with you not having 2 subwoofers. Never.
Look, I'm not one of those people that says you shouldn't have subwoofers. It's just that every time I have $1,000, something else gets the $1,000 to get 2 good.
You,
like
sir,
SBS
have to get
subs.
your priorities straight, because clearly you do not have them straight.
We keep going on vacations and stuff.
Life experiences. Who cares?
All right, buy stuff. Don't do things.
You can't get buried in an experience box, but you can get buried in an SBS subwoofer box.
Yeah, you can. You can get one of those 15-inch sub. I guarantee you I can fold up and fit in one of those if the speakers were taken out.
Well, okay, let's just start with the obvious here. And since Rob's not here, he's going to hate me for bringing this up, but I'm doing it anyways.
Let's do it.
3D TV. This is in the 2010s. At the beginning of the 2010s, 3D TV was the stuff that everybody had it. Projectors had it. You had. We were talking about the differences between your active and passive glasses. How bright your screen had to be because you were losing half your brightness because you were blocking out, you're blocking out half the image from one eye. It's just
It's a sad, quick little history
It
of
was
3D.
a blip. Well,
Man, it was cool the first time. Like when I went to see Avatar in the theater, I'm like, I dig this. Why don't I like it at home? And I, you know what it comes down to? We want to lay down on the couch.
Yeah.
I think that's what it all boils down to. Nobody wants to sit there with a doohickey on their head and sitting bolt upright in the center of their couch to watch properly. After about 30 minutes, you're like, I kind of want to just flop over like I normally do.
You know,
I want to get a pillow over here. I want to lay across my wife's lap or something.
I can see that. I personally, I usually, I will lie down and watch TV, but when I'm lying down to watch TV, my whole point is to fall asleep. That's the only time I'm lying down. I might, because I've got recliners, so I can recline. So
That's
I
right. It is super comfortable at your place. I will admit that. I've been there one time, and it was really nice.
It is quite comfortable. Yeah. So, it's just 3D has a history of them trying to push it down our throats until they kind of decide, oh, wait a second, they don't really like it that much.
I'm telling you, it's a little bit like how we've been able, if we had really wanted to do video conferencing over telephones for decades. And it turns out we're all sitting around in our underwear talking to each other, and we don't want to be on camera.
Yeah.
And you know what people use FaceTime the most for? It's not so grandmothers look at kids. It's so when you're standing in the store, you can go, which one of these chips do you want? Is it this one? What is that one?
If you watch The Expanse, which is a fantastic show that you can find, it's a sci-fi show that you can find now on Amazon Prime.
I started to watch it, but they used the word clicks instead of kilometers, and I couldn't take it anymore.
It's just so random.
I'm that petty.
Whatever.
If you say clicks, it sounds so ridiculous.
Whatever. It's
about 50,000 clicks from... Oh, shut up.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nobody talks like that.
They're from the future. Who knows how... Anyways.
No one says clicks in the future.
Show, they've got these little, like, clear glass thingies that... And some of it seems like, okay, we're definitely going to have this someday, where they take and they grab the image and they flick it towards the screen and it pops up on the screen.
Oh, right? I hate that.
But they I've got a friend who's he works for a tech company, and when he walks into any room, the room will the program they have on their phone recognizes what room you're in. It will put a pop-up on his phone that says, "Hey, you're here. Would you like this image to be put up on the screen over here?" And you can yes or no. It's almost exactly what you're talking about on the Expanse. But when they get the phone calls, it's always FaceTime. There's always an image there, and it's always on speaker. Like, I'm like, no, that's never going to be the case unless there's going to be this beaming audio where nobody outside of just whoever's like within 2 feet of the screen can hear it. Why is everything on frickin' speaker? I mean, dramatically it makes it easier to film things. I understand, but it's just never going to be the case, And
see, what I thought you were going to talk about was transparent screens in the future.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Everything in the future, like in Minority Report, is a perfect example. They always have transparent screens, and you can't see anything on a screen if there's junk behind the screen. And it's transparent. Why do they do that? We're never going to have transparent screens.
How did we
get
prediction
here? For the future.
I thought we were on 3D. What happened to this?
We're talking about stupid screens is what we're doing. And 3D is part of that, right?
So I just, 3D is just something that I'm not surprised that it's gone the way of the dodo. Again, they're going to keep bringing it back. And I think the only thing that's going to truly kill 3D as a 2D medium is when VR, and we're going to talk about VR in a little bit, but when VR becomes more obsequious, and that'll be the death knell for 2D, 3D.
Yeah, I think VR and augmented reality have a place, and I guess we're going to talk about that after a while.
Yeah,
I got you.
So, the 2010s too saw the resurgence of vinyl.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember Rob and I hand wringing over vinyl coming back, and everybody's vinyl is going to be the new hotness, and vinyl is so great. When was the last time somebody talked about vinyl as a thing? It's got to be at least 4 or 5 years since the last time I heard vinyl.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
I keep seeing things where like, oh, vinyl sold the most it ever has. Well, okay. But I'll tell you what it is. It's a little bit related to the fact that we want to lay down to watch TV, like I said before. We're human beings and we like tactile things. And it's nice to have a thing when you buy something. It's weird to buy something and you don't have a thing in your hand, right? I think it's collectible. It's just collectible. I think that's what it is. And because there are those people that are like, oh, vinyl's better, analog's better. It's no, it doesn't. It doesn't sound better than a CD. 100%. I can prove it to you with math. You won't believe me, but whatever. It's just collectible. It's fun. It's got something you can read. It's got pretty pictures. So I wish they would just sell booklets. Just maybe sell me a book. I just don't.
And I can see this as being a reaction to this idea that we're spending things online and we watch things go away. So we've bought them, but the service that was providing them, and this is happening in video, especially in the video game industry, where every game now is like a live service that you buy it and they're like, and it's gonna it's got to be served to you. The servers are online, but the minute that the game starts doing not well, the company doesn't want to spend any more money on it, so they shut down the servers. Now you can't play the game. There is no single person just play the disc thing. I bought Assassin's Creed when I was in Australia. I never played the game. I never gotten through the tutorial, to be honest with you, but I bought the game. And I know that if I ever want to play it, I can put it into whatever game machine I bought it for, and I will be able to play it. And that does not go away. But we're seeing more and more things become things that can go away. And as a reaction to that, to say, I would rather, buy a physical piece of media, a vinyl, rather than the iTunes version of it or the Voodoo version of it. I can understand that, but
for me, a FLAC file or a really good MP3, 320 kilobits per second might be fine. I agree. I want to have my copy of something in case the internet goes down or something else happens.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't play if the power goes out. You still can't play your records. Unless it's an old Edison cylinder, you're not hearing anything if the power goes out. So you got to have electricity. But yeah, if the internet goes down, you can't get to your stuff. And if a company goes away, you can't get to your stuff. And we're just tactile creatures. We like to have a thing. We don't want to admit that life itself is just ethereal and it goes away as well.
Well, and I gotta say, I mean, this this is also an indictment in my idea of it's both. It both works, but ephemeral is probably more correct. Is an indictment of over-reporting of the news of trends, like, oh, vinyl's the new hotness, and I'm like, no, it's not. Like 5 stores open in New York and suddenly you think it's hot. No, you live in New York. Believe me, nothing else opened anyplace else. All right, nothing. We still have
places closed here in my little town of about 100,000 people, and we still though have one really good locally owned record shop.
We do too.
And then of course there's Barnes and Noble.
We've got we've got a couple of used bookstores that are been around forever, and we also have a record store that is vinyl. I'm sure they sell other things I wouldn't know because I've never been in there, but that sells. That's very popular or whatever. It's been there forever, and I don't think that's necessarily going to die. But we're not seeing a resurgence, and I'm glad that they finally realized. But
notice what we're not talking about is the sound quality.
No,
I think you and I both agree this is for collectability, and it doesn't sound better than a CD.
So the one thing that I don't know exactly what's going on in this industry, to be honest with you, because I don't follow it, but traditional cameras. Not just, and I'm not talking about film necessarily, though. I know there's a lot of people out there that talk about how film's the best or whatever, and they're probably right.
They're kind of going away, though. Really.
Yeah, but just your DSLRs, the big, bulky, can add a bunch of lenses to it, takes fantastic pictures. It's got all kind of settings that I don't understand.
There's only 4 settings you need to know about.
Well, that's not true, though, because if not, they would only have 4 settings. It's not like a Yamaha receiver where they put a bunch of stuff on it you don't need. It's just I don't know how to use any of that.
I would argue that all the extra settings on fancier digital SLRs are to simply adjust the 4 things.
Okay. Well, you would know better than me because I know very little.
To me, a little bit of color science, you could maybe choose a different.
Sounds like you have an investment in this topic. Lee?
I do. I've had a SLR and then a digital SLR for many, many years. I got my first SLR in 1989 when I was 20, and it felt long overdue at the time. And then 2005, I got the first good digital SLR, and I've taken wedding photos and other event photography. Most recently, a burlesque troupe. It was really fun.
Oh, I bet it was.
Yeah, it was really fun. I had a really good view.
Don't tell my wife.
I bring my wife, and she takes the secondary photos from like the balcony. But so photography is not super complicated, but they make it super complicated. I swear to God, there's 4 things: there's aperture and shutter and focus, and what am I missing? I can't. Anyway, I'm not ready to talk about it now, so I didn't like write it down. But instinctively, I can like clickety click through manual settings and get really good pictures, but it's the auto stuff that confuses me. But it's going away. Cameras are going away because of cell phones. It's simple. I mean, there's no confusion about why it's happening. Most people, like 95% of everybody, they don't really care. They can tell my pictures are better when I use the good camera, but they can't put their finger on why. It's a bit like how they can come into my home theater and go, yeah, this is really nice, but they couldn't tell you exactly why.
Right.
They don't know what about the sound is better. They just say, oh, it's louder. Well,
yeah.
No, kind of.
I wish there was more subwoofers in here is what they say. They should
That's
say.
right. They say, man, the bass is lacking. Why is this ruined?
Why is the bass not placed in the proper areas of the rooms to get the best dispersion? I wonder.
And I got 2 15-inch woofers built into the speakers.
Into the wrong place. That you're going to put them in the opposing corners, Lee? Is that what you're doing?
No.
All right. Shut up.
It's still quite enjoyable. One day, man, throw me $1,000. I'll buy them tomorrow. But so cameras are going to be pretty well gone, except for people doing specialty things. And isn't that true with a lot of technology from the past? Is these separate devices are all going away because of the cell phone, except for people that have a specific reason to do better than the cell phone.
Well, and you can actually look at that too and say, things like portable players, like the iPod, which debuted before the 10s, right? The iPod was huge. And then do you have an iPod that you use on the regular anymore?
Actually, I'll tell you this. I have a little dinky MP3 player that holds like 1 gig from the 2000s. I can't remember exactly when, early 2000s. And I still use that when I go out exercising, jogging, because if I tear it up, I don't care. And yet I've never been able to tear it up. So it just keeps working and working.
My wife
I just manually copy some songs to it and go.
Yeah, my wife won a iPod Nano or something like that a million years ago. And I talked about it on this podcast a million years ago. And that is the only iPod we've ever owned. And it's only got 4 gigs that it will take, and it just lives in a car. It just plugs into the aux input of a car, and it never does anything else. I will sometimes take it with me when I'm traveling, so I don't have to put songs on my phone. But we're seeing, if I want to listen to music, I listen to Pandora, or I listen to something on my phone. I don't listen to an iPod anymore. It's we see these technologies come and go, and SLRs are the same way. And speaking of technologies that have bit the dust,
this makes me sad.
R.I.P. Plasmas. Sad to see them go, but I understand why they left. That's for sure.
They're heavier and they use more energy, and they just don't quite have the punch of an OLED. But again, like I mentioned before, when we bought that plasma in 2005, people would come over and watch absolutely anything with us because it was amazing. And everybody was saying things like, oh, it looks 3D. And that was a 1366 by 768 panel back then. It wasn't even full HD as I would consider it. But yeah, man, plasmas, I guess they had to go. There are people there. It's like a collector group of them out there, right? People will buy old plasma.
I'm sure. Well, the real problem with plasmas is that they just couldn't keep up price-wise with LCDs. And we just saw over the last decade, LCDs go from being more expensive than plasmas when they were first debuted to being, like you were talking about earlier, we've got LCDs out there right now that are, 65 inches, 55 inches, $500. I mean, some of them are garbage, but there's lots of really good ones. You got to know what you're looking for, but there's lots
right in front of me.
Yeah.
This is a 55-inch Sony I just bought for $500. It is, I mean, to be honest, because I'm so used to the OLED, this thing looks fair to middling to me. But then again, $500 to get a 55-inch screen. I just needed a decent screen. I needed it to be able to do 4K and 1080p 60. I didn't need it, and I couldn't resist. It's a Sony for $500.
Yeah.
But I will say, the really cheap ones, I don't like at all. I don't think they're worth it, even if they're super cheap, unless it just does not matter what the picture looks like.
Right, and I really feel like nowadays we're at the price points have come down so low that it's really just a matter of research. You don't have to spend that much more money to get. It used to be, like if you want to get a good TV, and it's still, I mean, it's always the case. If you spend a lot of money on a TV, you will get a good one.
Generally, yes.
Generally speaking, unless you're buying for a specific weird purpose, like, oh, I want a curved TV, which they still sell.
I can't believe they still sell that.
They had them lined up right before Christmas at Sam's. They were like, oh, curved OLEDs, right, or whatever they were, whatever they were, LGs,
LCDs,
yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
So, but now it's just a little bit of research, and you can come away with a cheap LCD with a number of zones of backlighting, which will make your black levels way better. All the compatibility you could possibly need for prices that were unheard of 10 years ago. I mean, 5 years ago, they were unheard of. So it's just nuts.
I agree. If you are buying a cheap one, though, look at that viewing angle. That's what drove me the most insane. Because my 2006 LCD that cost $1,600 in 2006, little 32-inch, it had better viewing angles than about 90% of all the LCDs I looked at Best Buy. And it came down to what I was wanting was apparently an IPS panel because they have better viewing angles. So that's one difference in those El Cheapos. So the black level's kind of crap, but the viewing angles are terrible on the really cheap TV.
So you know where to come if you need a suggestion on good TVs is right here, so don't worry about that. I mean, and you've got an OLED too, and OLED wasn't really, I mean, it was just on the horizon in the beginning of the 2010s, and it's really come into its own. And the prices are now starting to finally, in the last couple of years, come down to the point where we can start recommending them to people because they're expensive. They're expensive, but they're not like unreasonably expensive like like new technologies are when they first come out. So we've now got OLEDs, and I can say that they have, quote, arrived. They are here. Their prices are low enough, and we're really seeing OLED starting to become a real competitor to LCDs. And what LCDs have over OLEDs right now is price. Right now. That's
it. Well, if you look at all the TVs in Best Buy, it reflects the priorities of the average person. Most people just want something that has a picture on it.
Right.
And most people want something that's bigger rather than smaller. And then there's a small portion of people that want a really good picture and can tell the difference. So OLED will always be a little more expensive, like plasmas were always a little more expensive. And like surround sound costs more than just listening to your TV speakers. So all those TVs on display in your local Best Buy tell you what people are into.
Right.
So if they can ever come up with an OLED that's cheap, like really cheap, people would love it, but not going to happen. The market's not there. So it's always going to be a little more. But boy, you can go into Target and buy an OLED now.
You can. I've seen that.
That's a different world. That 55-inch one, I think I saw it on sale for $1,200 or something like that. Crazy.
And now, of course, everything's 4K. 4K wasn't a thing at the beginning of the decade, and now is your only option. That you can, and to get a 1080p display, you're going to have to get something that's like 28 inches or smaller.
Right. They still sell the 1366 by 768 panels in like a little teensy 19-inch size.
Yeah.
I'm surprised those aren't 4K as well. The 43-inch TV we put in our den that we just casually watch for the news and other things, that's a 4K too. It's a 43-inch
that's a lot
TV.
of TVs in one house for two people with no subwoofers. I'm just pointing that out. That's a lot That's a lot of TVs. Seems like you've got disposable income you could be spending on subwoofers, as far as I count.
You have a point. I could get rid of some TVs, maybe. Maybe I'll sell some stuff. We'll do like a yard sale just to buy a subwoofer. I can start off with one. I can get into that whole SVS game at the lower end.
So we're, 4Ks have become the new de facto standard in direct view TVs, but we're just now starting to see the prices come down to the point in projectors where they're not quite there yet, but they're getting to the point that 4K is going to be the de facto as well. Now, of course, HDR goes hand in hand along with 4K at this point. And if you're a fan of this podcast, I don't care about 4K, and Rob doesn't think 4K is that important either. But HDR and the high dynamic range, the expanded colors that you can get on the new displays, that seems to be, to us at least, the selling point, and how that is being handled right now. It's pretty clunky. They got some hit or miss on different displays that are out there. So 4K is, and while it's the 4K part of it is pretty easy to work out. It's just the number of pixels, and the scaling is not that hard. But the HDR really is starting to come into its own and getting to the point now where we're going to see, TV starting to do it right, I think, pretty consistently in as we go forward.
I'm a little pessimistic. I think it's going to take longer.
Yeah.
You're probably looking at 5 or 6 more years before you can just reliably know that the shows you want to watch are going to be in good HDR with something closer to 700 or 1,000 nits.
Right.
I think it's going to take a while. Just because, when it's 2020 and I'm watching, I got one more episode of Mandalorian, and we talked about, Rob and I talked about this. There is sort of fake HDR out there, or lame HDR, with just 200 nits of range.
Right.
And that's frustrating. So it's going to take them a little while to get there. I think I'm a little more excited about 4K than you guys are. I've always been, because I've been a semi pseudo pro photographer a little bit. I've been a pixel peeper for a long time, and I don't know. I love the detail. I like putting my face in the monitor on my computer. And seeing every little pixel. Yeah.
Well, and that right there is my whole problem with 4K, and I've said this multiple times on the podcast, so I won't beat that horse. But you're putting your nose on the screen because you're editing pictures, or you're editing video, or you're doing all that stuff. Most of us have a 4K, or not most of us, but most people have a 4K display. It's 55 to 65 inches, and they're sitting 10 to 15 feet away from it. There's just no point. There's no point for that pixel density.
I swear I feel it's probably more due to compression and other issues than the resolution, but I sure can feel when I'm watching a 4K video of any sort. I feel like I can in my living room. I'm probably 9 feet from a 65 inch, and so theoretically I shouldn't be able to see the exact difference, but man, it's just something so much better about it. And I think probably it's like bit rate.
Yeah,
it just
more likely.
better.
Yeah, more likely. As we talk about bit rate, before 2010, I don't remember when Netflix first started streaming stuff, but it wasn't that much after 2010, if it wasn't, or not that much before the 2010s started.
I think it was right about 2010. Yeah. I remember, I might have told you about this in an email, where we got the little disc that you put in a PS3 from Netflix, and it let the PS3 stream from Netflix, and that was like wicked cool and a brand new thing. And I laughed because my wife watched Paul Blart Mall Cop just because it was in high def. And it looked really good. Yeah. And it was amazing that you could do it.
I started streaming Netflix back when it was so hard. You can only get it online in like one, and I can't for the life of me remember the service, which they still email me from time to time to remind me to update my settings or whatever. I haven't used it in forever. But when Netflix didn't have anything on it, we were it was free if you had the discs, and that's when I started. And but now look at us. I mean, it's a streaming wars is probably. I don't even know if we're at the pinnacle of the streaming wars yet. We're not. They're still trying to come out with new streaming services every day, and it's going to be a while before we see we're in the great expansion of the streaming services. With Disney Plus and Apple just announcing this last year, it's streaming is
the old model of cable is definitely dissolving. We're just watching it happen before our very eyes.
Yeah.
Right now, the problem is still bundling from these companies that own multiple channels, and you have to get everything from that company all at once. And so what we all wish for is a la carte, where I could just buy the 20 channels I care about. And we're all just dissolving into our own little worlds. Have you noticed that, like, the majority of conversations when you get together with friends, or especially people you haven't seen in a while, ends up being, here's what I'm watching, you should watch this. What are you watching? Oh, I'm watching this. You should watch that. And then we never watch what the other person is watching. No one is watching the same thing anymore. It feels like, except for Game of Thrones and Mandalorian, no one's watching the same thing. I watched some of the Golden Globes, and they could have been making up TV shows. It could have been like, it was like watching The Onion. They're just words. Who are these people? What are these shows? I've never heard of them. And I'm watching as much as I possibly can. I'm out of time to watch any more TV.
Yeah.
And there's so many shows. That's what's happening. But surely, eventually, we must be able to get to that sort of a la carte. We're getting close. We're separate services.
Definitely very close to that. We don't really need too many more services to show up before it is basically a la carte.
Right.
That's going to completely change. Well, it'll be interesting to see in the future what happens with cable companies and how they deal with this. Because right now they're dealing with it is, we will give you access to, on demand and all this other stuff, which is just like streaming, except you use our box instead. But it doesn't give you access to all the other things that you want. So now I got to pay for
the cable company they're becoming a streaming service as well. Yeah, because they have their own package, and the picture comes to you as a stream. So it's all just a data streaming service, depending on where you want to get it from.
10 years ago, the question we were being asked on the regular was, do you think there'll ever be enough bit rate for people to actually stream things? And we're now streaming 4K HDR with Dolby Atmos. So the answer...
I've streamed like 50 megabits per second.
Yeah. So the answer was
YouTube.
Clearly yes, and that was the answer I said back then, and it's still yes. There's
it's definitely yes.
Yeah,
in fact, the only thing holding us back from having gigabit up and down in every home is just the monopolies of the cable company.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
So I don't see streaming going anywhere anytime soon. I do wonder about what's going to happen with the cable companies. But you mentioned earlier virtual reality, or VR, and augmented reality, or AR, or AugR, I sometimes call it, but AugR. But that's. I mean, if Facebook is to be believed, I should have bought an Oculus Rift a long time ago, because they have been pushing that on me like they're the corner crack dealer. I'm like, I don't want it. I don't want it. Leave me alone, bro. And they're like, nah, man, you want this. Now we can give it to you, and you don't have to hook it up to a computer. And I know that Rob's got one. He says it's pretty good, but I'm not interested in VR. But is VR the VR was the promise. We've been talking about VR for at least 10 years.
A long time, yeah. We've been talking about it since the late 80s.
Yeah, I remember going to like a VR, I don't even know what to call it. It's not an arcade, but it's a shop where they had like 3 or 4 VR machines, and you would sit down in them, and they'd have screens everywhere, and it was all vector graphics, and stuff like that.
Didn't Dave and Buster's have a thing like in the early 90s, and you could put the thing on and stand in the roped off area and move around, and everything looked like the Money for Nothing video from 1985.
Right.
Yeah, that all just looked terrible. But so we've all kind of been interested. But again, it's a thing on your head, and we can only tolerate things on our head for so long before we get sick of it. And so it's got to be much lighter, and there has to be purpose-made things for it. There's got to be some super duper new thing you can do with it other than just watch something.
Right.
A friend of mine spent a lot of money to get an Oculus Rift, and he likes flight simulators and so forth. And I enjoyed it a lot. It was, and I could see where it was going. There was still the screen door effect, not enough resolution, not enough frame rate. That's solvable in the future. It's definitely a thing that's really super cool. What a neat way to like go on a little mini vacation in your head and be somewhere else. The whole experience of it is really cool, but it's got to get better. I think it's going to have, but it's never going to be the main way we consume anything. It's always going to be a special thing.
Yeah,
like gaming.
Not in the way that, not in the current form of technology that it is. I agree. As long as you have to put a thing on your head and hold special, gloves or whatever.
Right.
The whole Matrix idea where there's there's a plug in the back of your head, and once you're plugged in, you feel like it shuts down all your body actual movements, and then it's all just you interacting in the Matrix or the VR until something like that happens.
I wouldn't mind, sitting in a chair and climbing Mount Everest with somebody in some sort of 3D VR thing where I can turn around and look and it would feel really neat. That kind of stuff would be super fun. Like I said, to travel to other places. This friend of mine had a program where you went on the Apollo 11 mission. That was pretty cool. The graphics weren't amazing, but it was pretty cool. So it's coming. It'll get better. It'll never be the main thing. We're not going to all sit in our living rooms with helmets on forever.
What time is it? My son's
It
home.
is. Oh.
So Violet has just gotten off the couch because she could hear somebody come in the door. Come here, Violet. Come here,
Puppies.
Come here, puppy.
That dog is cute, by the way.
Yeah, she is very cute.
That's new for the 2020s.
So, yeah, that is new for the 2020s. But what about augmented reality? So AR is a completely different animal in that we're not trying to put stuff on our heads. We are, looking through a screen at the world. And
you could put it on your head.
You could. I mean, the Google Glasses was essentially going to be doing just that.
Yeah, it was just too soon for it.
Well, it wasn't just too soon for it, but it got leaked. From my understanding, because I read a postmortem of it, is that it got leaked, and so they ended up releasing it, and they weren't even really ready to release it at that point. So I'm not surprised that it was quote unquote too soon, but augmented reality, is that going to be something that's going to be more and more a part of our daily lives?
I think so. I mean, Pokemon Go was popular for a hot minute in the 2010s.
It's still popular. I mean, I just saw a commercial at the beginning of the Star Wars Last Jedi. There's a commercial for Pokemon Go. I'm like, if you can afford that, if Niantic, the game manufacturer, that can afford that, then they certainly are making enough money to justify that it's still a viable moneymaker for them. So, yeah.
But I think it'll be just for games for the foreseeable future, because they keep showing, like every TED Talk always shows this amazing productivity you can do in some sort of weird office environment, but people have been talking about stuff like that for ages, and people still want to just sit and read a piece of paper or at best a monitor. I think it's going to be gaming for a long time. Somebody's going to surprise me. I know 10 years from now I'll be like, wow, I couldn't even see that coming. That's an amazing use of augmented reality. I'm having trouble imagining what it is.
All right. Hold on a second here. I'm just going to get over here, puppy. No?
I hear the puppy whistling out of
whining.
excitement.
I gotta let her out. Hold on.
You gotta let her out. That's okay. That's fine. Puppies require attention. And speaking of the 2010s, I had a puppy in the 2010s for the longest time, and that puppy got very old in the 2010s.
10 years
in the 2020s,
10 years of old, I would imagine.
Yes, the 2020s are dog free now.
Oh.
I first got a dog in 92 and didn't mean to. It was the other person's idea. And then I ended up with 25 years of wiener dogs and never actually intended to. Wonderful animals. I can't deal. I can't deal.
So, audio. The beginning of the 2010s, there was a sort of a kind of, I don't want to call it a war, but there, we saw a lot of different room correction systems that were either out there or were becoming bigger and bigger. So of course we had Odyssey, and Odyssey in the 2010s was available. The very beginning of it was available. I think may have had multi-Q, might have been the best that was available at that time. But we've had, of course, a couple of upgrades since then. We've had MCACC, which was the Pioneer one, sort of go the way of the Dodo. We saw the YPOW get expanded to include the reflection, the RSC. So we saw that happen. We saw Drac make an appearance, and in a lot of ways get a pretty large following. But then we sort of tapered off. And in the last 4 or 5 years, we really haven't seen much.
I think that might just be the case going forward. I think once you get to the point where you're getting most of the correction you can expect to get in most normal rooms, you hit a point of diminishing returns, making it ever more complex, I think.
Yeah, so I
think that's what's happening.
We definitely saw room correction go from being something that, first of all, we didn't really understand all that well how to use. There was a lot of, when it first came out, room correction, people would argue with their quote unquote argue with their room correction about subwoofer distances, and simply because they're like, the physical distance between my subwoofer, I could see it's got to be around 10, 12 feet, and it's telling me it's 26, or it's telling me it's 32. So clearly something's wrong with my room correction system. Well, what they didn't understand, and what a lot of us at that point did not understand, was that room correction, that distance, wasn't about a physical distance, but about an audio delay. And we're starting to see more and more understanding of that, and we're seeing room correction that even the stuff that Rob and I will say, don't use it. Don't let this thing make any adjustments to your speakers. We'll still say, but you can use it to set up your system. You can still use it. It will set the distances correctly. It will set the trim levels correctly. Don't worry about that. But anything else it wants to do, you can stop. You don't let it do that. So, room correction really sort of got to a mature place, and seems to be a technology that's pretty mature at this point.
I think so. Yeah, I got into the game in 2014 when I got a new receiver, and I only bought that receiver at that time because I had a Chromecast I couldn't hook up to my TV that only had one HDMI input at the time. And I was like, it's time to get something that switches HDMI. And I remember thinking, this has done something weird. It sounded good on the high end, and no surprise, I wanted more low end. Gee, I wonder why.
If only there were a way of getting more low end. If only.
But I tweaked the EQ a little bit to my own liking, and off we went. I think it just matured pretty fast. They will always be making it ever so slightly better, maybe with more bands of EQ,
right?
And more precision.
More
and better
filters.
Microphones might come with the receiver.
Right. That could be something happening in the future.
Maybe a wireless microphone that comes with the receiver somehow. That would be kind of cool.
That would be fine. But they give you like 40 feet of wire on the one you've got. I can't imagine you plug it in. You plug it in once and you're done. I mean, do we really have to have wireless?
I'm just telling you, I know how people are, right?
Yeah,
people don't like to squat down and plug a thing in. Yeah. They like to float a magic thing.
Do they like putting batteries in it that once every 3 years they use it? Because that's what they'll have to do.
Yes, apparently so. I can't stand having to put batteries and things all over the place. There's all kinds of little devices I've thought about. Like, I wanted a lock on my front and carport doors that I could unlock and lock, like from my phone or something. So I could unlock all the doors in the house at once and lock them all at once, and everything was battery powered. I'm like, I don't want to have to keep up with the stupid. I don't want to be locked out because my stupid batteries anyway. So yeah, I hate batteries if I can help it, but I'm just telling you how people are. People love wireless everything, so maybe that's something that happens in the future. We'll
see. So one thing that did happen in the 2010s is immersive audio. At the beginning of the 2010s, we had no idea this was coming. And these immersive audios and object-based audio codecs, Dolby Atmos and our DTS-X and Auro 3D, let's not forget they do exist, even if they're not relevant. These object-based immersive audio formats are ones that they're here. The technology, as far as the speakers are concerned, I mean, from the speaker manufacturers, and they didn't really have to do much. I mean, SVS did come up with a brand new speaker design, which has been aped by many other companies at this point. But immersive audio was always designed, at least at first, and with in-ceiling speakers, which were already readily available. So then it was a matter of the receivers being able to decode the codecs, and that, that's just processing power and adding a codec to your receiver, and then adding additional channels. Now we're up to the point now where if you get the flagship Denon or whatever, you can get some 13 channels or whatever it is, out of it. Maybe 15, I can't remember, but Trinov, you can get, of course, a lot more, but you're going to spend $30,000 trying to get it or more.
No, thank you.
So, the thing that for me that says, okay, immersive audio in many ways is already mature enough in, the receivers don't have to do much more. Speakers don't have to do anything really. But the thing that has not really happened in my mind yet, as far as immersive audio, is the ability to place your speakers wherever you want, and the receiver or your processor, whatever it is, says, okay, now I know where all your speakers are. Let me try to recreate these things as best I can, rather than we're still stuck with putting them in specific places and telling the receiver where
well, think about it.
are.
The receiver would, I mean, this is bound to come one day, but the receiver would have to have like a 3D scatter plot of your living room.
Well, it doesn't take that much to do it. You've got that's the RSC on Yamaha. They have the little Nerf frisbee thing, the 3-prong frisbee thing, and you put this you put that where you're going to take your measurement, and then you place the microphone in all three of the spots or whatever it is. I don't remember exactly how it works, but and that gives it a 3D image of where the speakers are in the room, which is there with RSC is reflected sound control, I believe, is what that stands for. And they're able to do that already now. Not Odyssey, but Dolby and DTS and the receiver manufacturers, and I guess if their room correction system has anything to do with this, they have not come up with a way to implement that so that you can place it will decide where your speakers are, and then use that information to guide the object where it needs to be. But other than that, it feels like, the thing we're really, the biggest issue with immersive audio is mixing.
Yeah. I've never understood how in the world you could have, it'd be like having infinity number of tracks in a multi-channel mixer where every single sound effect is separately encoded and told to be placed in certain places. Am I explaining that right? Is that...
Well, I mean, it is infinity. I mean, it's XYZ coordinates, and you place using. I mean, I have no idea how they do it. But they could be using a mouse. They could be using like a trackball or a something like that. But basically, they're like, I want this sound that originates from this point. Use whatever channels you need to make that happen. So, the sound designer doesn't have to do anything other than say this is where it comes from, and then the program does the rest of it.
On their end, when they're making the audio, that makes sense to me. On my end, I just have 7 channels.
Yeah.
And it's just going to come out wherever their system tells my system to send it out. So it's just, I think we reach, again, it's that whole diminishing returns thing. It's that whole human reality thing, like how many speakers do regular people want in their rooms? I don't mind a bunch. My room can't tolerate a bunch. It just isn't shaped or sized to have a bunch. So I think particularly complex immersive audio and channels going above about 7 starts to just get impossible for most people, or not even desirable for most people. So the market's always going to be small.
Oh, it's always going to be niche for sure, because
innovation will be slow there because there's just not a ton of people dying for it. It's weird that you reach a point, and people have said this in the past, there's that famous quote from like the 1890s where somebody said, and there's nothing else we're going to invent, and so it feels all the time like everything is plateaued. I see the speed of computers isn't increasing as much. I see certain things were like audio, as far as just like the sound quality of a speaker and of how we encode it digitally, has been as good as it's going to get for a little while now.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like an amplifier can't get a ton better. Human ears are only so good. Encoding, they picked the CD encoding scheme back in the early 80s, late 70s, because that's just what humans can hear. And so it feels weird to say, immersive audio is about as good as it's going to get. But it might be as good as it's going to get. Tweaks, gets cheaper, gets simpler. Processors in the receivers get a little faster and more sophisticated. But how much more can you do when humans are in human living rooms with human ears?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely hear you when it comes to that. We'll talk a little bit more about what's coming in the future for immersive audio as we talk about the future stuff. But as far as what you're saying right now, getting people to put more speakers into the room has always been the bane of immersive audio because, how? I mean, and for me, as somebody who has speakers that are overhead and speakers that, I have, I guess I have 7.2.4 now in here. The 0.4, yes, they do a thing. They are as a thing that happens that those speakers do that was not there before. And if it went away, I would be like, I probably wouldn't notice it. But if you took the subwoofers out of my room or the surround speakers out of my room or the left or right speakers out of my room, yes, I would notice a difference. And
sure.
And immersive audio, is one of the biggest limitations for me that so far has been, other than just getting enough speakers into your room, is that we're just not built to hear that much stuff above or behind us. And adding more speakers in those locations, to me, is more of a psychological advantage than it is a physical one. So it makes it hard. One of the, if I had to say which was the flash in the pan hotness of the 2010s, sonically, I would say folded ribbon tweeters. It's like,
really?
Oh, it has been this decade has been one that's like, and it happens all the time. Where beryllium tweeters or aluminum dome tweeters, soft dome tweeters, those weird ring radiator tweeters, that all come, and then like everybody's got to have them in their speakers. And right now, it feels like folded ribbon tweeters are just everywhere. Like you can't make a speaker right now and not have a fold. RBH is using them, and RBH used while everybody else was using aluminum domes and ring radiators, they were still on silk dome tweeters for the longest time, and now they're starting to use folded ribbon tweeters. To me, folded ribbon tweeters wins my award for flash in the pan, most overused technology just because it sells stuff. It's like the gloss black of speakers. It doesn't necessarily do that much for it, but it does. It's
just a different
things.
Character to it, right? I mean, isn't that it's not that silk dome tweeters can make a super accurate sound.
Yeah.
So again, I don't think we're chasing ever better sound. It may just be trendy sound.
And like I said, I mean, if I had to say, and this is my problem for me, this would be my personal opinion. Like the decade before that, and maybe the first half of this decade, the 2010s was the aluminum bullet cone, bullet phase plugs. And if you wanted to have a high-end speaker design, if it didn't have an aluminum bullet shaped phase plug in it,
right
in your woofer, in your mid-range woofer, it couldn't possibly be high-end.
Like a missile from the 1950s.
It couldn't be a high-end speaker if it didn't have one of those drivers. Like that alone said this is a high-end speaker, and that's where we are right now, at least with the folded ribbon tweeter. So I'll guess what I'll give it dual status here. The first half of the decade, the aluminum bullet phase plugs. Second half of the decade, it's folded ribbon tweeters hand in hand. If you put those things on there, you guaranteed to have an expensive speaker on your hands. Even
surely we're going to cycle back around to horns.
Well, people have tried a bunch of different things. I've seen those Philharmonic ones. I think they're Philharmonics, whatever they are. The one with the 4 tweeters that are all right next to each other. It's just stupid. But everybody's trying to do something. And to Appearing Audio's benefit, they kind of stuck with their Tangerine waveguide or whatever they have on theirs, and that's been 3 generations they've had of that speaker design going on with their Veris Grand line.
Has anybody done a vibrating ball tweeter on top of a box?
Yeah, so the super tweeter, man. That's just super tweeters. They sell that at Appearing as well. Whatever. All right. So I guess lastly, and this is not really this is still an ongoing thing and developing. I mean, I just saw one the other day from Google in Best Buy, not Best Buy, Home Depot. I was in there yesterday, and I was in the light section. And here was the little Google Home Assistant. So we've got all of our Home Assistants, including, of course, She Who Shall Not Be Named, Alexa. But
those things are listening all the time, and just like when little kids or dogs learn how to spell special words, I'm sure that particular box in your house knows you just spelled it.
Well, how do you feel about all these Home Assistants and the Echo Dots and the Google Home Assistants and the what is the Apple one? What is the Apple one's got one, right? Siri?
Isn't it just Siri? Yeah. Are we waking up everyone's Siri by saying Siri?
Probably, but yeah. I don't care that much about the Apple
That's
people.
Theirs, I suppose. How do I feel about it? I've always had a certain string of paranoia in the back of my head. I try not to, I'm not like a doomsday prepper, but I just don't love it. And I know my phone is listening to me enough, at least when I turn it on and it's functioning and an app is open, I know it could possibly be listening. It sure seems like I get ads that are more than just targeted to my demographic. They seem to be nailing something I talked about 3 days ago. Sometimes, call me crazy.
I'm literally about to call you crazy, but go on.
It feels like it. I'm telling you what it feels like. Yeah. So the logical part of me says the NSA does not care what Lee Overstreet is doing in his living room. But it feels weird, and my phone is enough of that action. But overall, when it comes to the little dots and the boxes and the speakers around the house that you can talk to, so far, I haven't seen them do anything that I can't already do either with my phone or some other doohickey near me or my human body. Like, I don't find it particularly difficult to stand up, take 3 steps, and turn a light off. That's just me. And I know I sound like a curmudgeonly old man, maybe, but I really just, when things give me a brand new function in my life, I like it. And so far, none of these talking boxes and these spy machines, none of them do anything that I can't already do.
Yeah, I mean, you could whittle your own toys from wood and give them out at Christmas, but you're not gonna, are you?
Well,
you're gonna order from Amazon just like the rest of us.
Like you, when I was at your house that time, you spoke to your magic box and you had it set a timer and you had it play some music and I think you turned the volume up and down and you set another timer. So I have a timer on my phone and I have a timer stuck to my fridge with a magnet for my coffee. I don't know, man. I'm just, so far I haven't seen anybody do anything with one that I can't already do.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. But we have She Who Should Not Be Named in like every room of the house almost. It's
wow.
They're everywhere. All the kids have one in their bedrooms, and they use them for alarm clocks, which, yes, they have alarm clocks. But
I already have that in my phone.
Yeah, they have, yes, that's right. And then this is
had those for 100 years.
Yep. And I can check their alarms to make sure all their alarms are set on my phone without having to get up. I could walk into their bedroom and look at their alarm clocks, but I'm not gonna. I
know
use
it's like 20 feet. It's so far.
I use her to make grocery lists, because a lot of times I'm like, I gotta remember to get this, and I do or don't write it down, and then I forget. And I do
that on my phone already.
Again, it's this, you're trading one spy box for another, but at this point,
Well, I guess so, right? But like, why would I buy extra spy boxes when I already have one in my pocket? It does it all.
Yeah, I do not think this is a technology that's going to last. I don't think that there's legs on Home Assistants. I think that Home Assistants will not have their own individual. The Echo Dot is not going to be a product that Amazon's going to be selling in 2025.
I'm going to tell you what's creepy. I talked to my insurance guy recently for homeowners and auto. I wanted a big review of it because the cost of the homeowners went up more than I felt like it should. And one of our cars probably were going to drop comprehensive coverage. So I went and talked to him about that. We sat there with him for maybe an hour. Nice guy. I've known him for a long time. And after that, and I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll probably drop this one part. I'll let you know, and you tell me when this happens, blah, blah, blah. And then like 2 weeks later, that company sent me a spy box for my car, just free. A little googly, I can't even remember now because I don't care. I'm not about to use it, but it was a doohickey you're expected to put in your car, and it's going to listen to you in your car now because we're not getting enough information from inside your house.
What's the box supposed to do, though?
You tell me. I don't know. I'm supposed to be like, there's a commercial for it on TV where a guy's driving home going, hey, play this music at home. Turn the lights on at home. You're not at home. And like his wife comes in before he gets there, and I guess she's all excited and they still love each other. I don't know. I don't know what you're supposed to do with this stupid box. But they sure sent that to me right after I said, yeah, I'm probably going to drop some stuff.
I have no idea.
I don't know, man.
But
it's just, that's a little weird.
No, it's not. You were in their office. Of course they're going to send you.
They sent me a little spy box for my car.
Yeah, I thought that the one spy box thing I saw on TV, and I might not be the same company. It was, they track you voluntarily put it in there because you go the speed limit, and they track to make sure that you're doing that, and then you get discounts because of it.
Screw that.
Yeah, no one says you have to do it if you don't want your discount. Yeah,
I'll go ahead and pay more.
That's right. All right, let's talk about the future. So that was the future. That was kind of our review of the decade, the major technologies that came out in 2010 and how we felt about them. And now we're going to talk about the future here and what we think's coming, or what is definitely coming. And some things
whether we want it or not,
so
things are coming.
And the things that we know or we think might be coming. So let's start with the one that we know is coming and that I definitely don't want. And that, of course, is the 8Ks, the 10Ks, the 16K displays, the 11.56K displays, all of that. All the Ks, the extra Ks, I don't want them. Please, God, save us all from the Ks.
I kind of agree with you there. I find it hilarious that there are 8K TVs for your house. No one's house is that big. You're just not going to see it. No. Even I mean, like, you are hitting a point where your physical eyeball can't see it unless you have hawk eyes.
Well, even then, you were mentioning earlier when you said that you got your first HDTV and people would come over and look at it and say it looks 3D. That was exactly my reaction to HDTV. The first time I saw that, I was like, this is amazing. This is a significant, noticeable jump in technology, in improvement in picture quality that anyone can notice. Anyone can notice this.
Probably the best we're ever going to see in our lifetimes, the most significant.
Yeah,
jump.
It's going to be very, very hard for us to see a technological change. That's akin to me to going from 2-channel to surround sound. Their difference in those two things are 2-channel with TV speakers to surround sound with subwoofers. That is the difference in your normal standard definition to high definition. I have yet to have seen another improvement in video that has that sort of impact. And in my experience, HDR, while an improvement, is not nearly that dramatic.
Not nearly that dramatic. It's awful nice. But yeah, I agree with you. I remember when we went and bought an OLED in 2018, and I was disappointed with the apps, and there was a stuck-on pixel, and we ended up taking it back, thinking, we shouldn't spend this much money now. And we waited, and we went back and got the other OLED earlier last year, and I'm glad we did that. All the apps do what I want. The picture quality's fine. There's no dead pixel or stuck pixel. But yeah, it was easy to take that first OLED back and keep using my plasma, because I didn't feel like it had rocked my world
Yeah.
like the plasma did, going from the 32-inch CRT from back in the day. Nothing will ever recapture that magic in the house. So, 8K, I suppose, is great for people doing production.
Yeah.
It gives them some flexibility to like zoom in and out. But some people are using it kind of lazy. Like, instead of having a human actually operate the camera and get the shot that you want, they just turn an 8K camera on in the general vicinity of what they're shooting, and then later they zoom in and pan and change everything after the fact.
We'll catch
so
it in editing. We'll fix it in editing.
Yeah, exactly. So they just shoot everything in RAW. Don't worry about exposure. Don't worry about framing, and they fix all that on the computer.
I mean, do you think that they're ever going to get away from giving us that metric, the number of pixels metric?
I do, and I think it may end with 8K as far as metrics, that number, resolution number in the home, because you're kind of done. You can't see it. Kind of like DVD audio and the Blu-ray audio. What was that? With multi-channel audio, just nobody cared. Nobody sits in a chair and concentrates on surround sound for music. We all jam out in the car. I mean, a few people do, obviously, but we all sing along in the kitchen. We put headphones on. We don't have 12 ears.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I'm going to point you to every receiver ever released ever, and how no matter how pointless the number of watts they have, that number is still there. It is still there, and they still cheat it up as high as they can. I think that they didn't
keep going up and up and up.
Oh, they try, yeah, but I think that we're always going to have this metric, and in a second we're going to talk about the display technology, and I've already talked about it in the podcast. It shouldn't surprise anybody that I think it will become more relevant, but you're going to see up to 16K, up to
I think the next metric is the HDR nits. That's the one everybody's going to chase ever crazier.
They're not even reporting that right
range.
now. They don't have that on those displays right now.
But that's what's coming.
You think
they're going eventually. TVs will be like, this is a normal 4K TV or an 8K TV, but this one's got 2,000 nits. This one's got 2,400. This one can burn your retinas.
Right.
That'll be the number, because that's the next thing you can.
All right. I don't think so. I don't think anybody's ever going to understand what a nit is, because a nit sounds like a bug, and in fact, it is.
They'll change the name. They'll call it something else.
But
they'll call it something.
Yeah. So OLEDs right now, like we said, at the end of 2019, OLEDs are here. They're coming down in price, but they're not necessarily one-to-one in competition with LEDs, because LEDs are so much cheaper at the same size. But QLEDs, which are your quantum dots, which in essence are an LCD, but there's a backlight for each individual. The pixels themselves illuminate just like OLEDs do, but it's a different technology. Is there going to be an OLED versus QLED war in this next decade? Do you think that's coming?
Yes, of course. But it won't be a war that lasts very long. I mean, because everybody's going to worry about burn-in, and it is. So if you're, how many times have we talked about burn-in? And
too many, honestly.
Yes, probably too many. But if you are in a situation where the same image is going to be on the screen for a long, long time, then an OLED isn't for you. But other than that, it's coming down to price. Which one can get cheaper? And if the QLEDs can get cheaper, they win. And that's kind of always been the case, almost.
It definitely was the case over plasma over LEDs, that's for sure, because LED was is still the inferior technology to plasma, but plasma's lost because they couldn't get their prices down. And
a little bit because they were heavier, and
there was a lot of marketing about burn-in and stuff like that, which is how LED killed plasmas more than anything. So
now I've seen burn-in. I've seen it in both a plasma and an OLED, but it has to be weird conditions.
Yeah.
Like in Best Buy, for instance, that same pattern ran on the OLED 24/7, the same video over and over again, maxed out brightness, and then you could see the little crayons or whatever it was they were demoing. You could see a little after image. But in 14 years, I think it was, I never burned in the plasma.
My parents have had a Samsung plasma since it's got to be I mean, it was 56 inches, and they spent, I think, almost $3,000 on it. So you can do
mid-2000s.
Yeah, mid-2000s. So it's been 15 years they've had that plasma, and they watch news religiously, and there's no burnout on that thing. I've been saying, and I think a lot of people are also expecting, that micro LEDs are going to be something that is going to be the new technology that we're going to see coming in the future.
Essentially a dimming zone for every pixel.
Well, it is essentially, but these things are sold in. What we expect is that they will be sold in blocks. So you'll buy the number of blocks you need, you'll mount them to your wall, and then they all snap together like those green. Remember the green base of the Lego? If we want to build a Lego village, it'd be like that, except for they snap in at the edges, and then the LEDs are all embedded. So then I'm
telling you, you're never not going to see the seam in between.
That's
the blocks.
Not true. I don't believe that's true.
You're
at all.
Never not going to see it. There's no way you can build to that fine a tolerance such they just melt together. It's just not going to happen.
I just
don't see. I only see that happening, those blocks, in very large installations.
Oh, they're already in very large installations. Yeah. That's already a thing.
And they only ever will be like that. But and also the big difference is passive versus emissive pixels, right?
Yeah.
That you're never going to have a passive pixel be as good as an emissive pixel.
Which is what the micro LEDs are. They're emissive. So, I mean, to me, the thing about this technology that's exciting, much more so than the rollable LEDs and stuff, which we didn't talk about. They are here, but
because they're dumb.
I mean,
they're so dumb.
They're fine. I would love to have it, but
why? When have you ever wanted to roll up your TV?
I want it to come from the ceiling like a projection screen, and it's emissive, and I don't have to, I don't have to have a projector. I just put it on the front, and it just rolls down over the top of the window, and it covers everything up. It's beautiful. Love it.
If that was so important, we've had ways to hide TVs for a long time where they could come up out of a cabinet or come down from an attic space. If you really were dying for that, we could have done it.
I've seen it. It's just stupid expensive. I just don't expect these rollable LEDs or OLEDs to ever be.
I don't think that's coming. I mean, eventually one day, but after I die, there'll be newspaper-like foldy pieces of paper that are amazing screens, I suppose. But for most television viewing, you don't need it. Again, it all comes down to what do people want, not what we can do, but what do people actually want. And I've never met anybody that said, I love my TV, but if only it would fold. I've never ever met anybody that was so somebody maybe out there wants that, but not enough people want a foldy television. Now, a foldy phone, if you got a foldy phone and it goes in your pocket and it's a big screen when you unfold it, they've tried that already. There's been a couple of models in the past year or so,
two,
right?
Yeah.
And they're not very good because the technology doesn't quite crease nicely and unfold nicely. So one day that'll come in your pocket, and maybe even like something that fits in your pocket and folds out to a tablet, but I don't think TVs, there's just not a whole lot of people that are dying to hide their television. I don't think.
Yeah.
It's just another thing you have to do to watch TV, wait for the TV to unroll.
We'll see what happens. I think we might even see paintable micro LEDs. Basically, you paint the wall, and then the space that you paint can be somehow connected to a box that controls the molecules or whatever in the paint. I mean, it'd be crazy, but I'm sure that's possible.
I think at that point you need like the hyper futuristic nanobots to self-assemble on your wall.
I'll take it.
Make a TV.
That's coming one day. Talk about worried about spy boxes. Your entire walls are now little machines. Yes. Yeah.
Long after I'm dead.
So we already talked about immersive audio, but more speakers? I mean, is that the direction that we're headed? I mean, receivers have to find a way to be relevant. They have to. And one of the ways they can do that is they have to up their numbers. So what can they up? Can they give us more power? They haven't really done that in the last decade. 100 watts, 120 watts, 130 watts. It's not that big of a difference in the last decade. What we have seen is more and more channels. So are we going to have more and more speakers?
Again, we're talking about human beings. What do human beings want? They want neato surround sound that comes from around them, but they don't want a bunch of visible boxes in the room. And they also don't want to spend tons of money on an installer to hide a bunch of speakers. So I think we're reaching the point where probably about 7 is about where people are going to stop and say, that's enough for me. I think receivers will always be here, though, because you need a switch box, basically, and they don't want to build all that into the television. You don't want to run a bunch of wires into the TV. And there's got to be some way to choose what you're watching. Maybe the TV could do all that wirelessly eventually. But I think what's going to advance on a receiver is finally somebody is going to start making them easier. For the average person, they're befuddling. And it seems weird when you're into it like us. Like it's no big deal. Plug this into here, plug that, set that, run this. But if they can get slicker and easier, that's where they will succeed, I think. Like I can picture a receiver with like an LCD screen on the front of it that you can touch, something that just slickly integrates with your Harmony remote. It knows a lot about the TVs and devices you plug into it. Something like that's just really easy and talks to my phone immediately, and I can just like pick what I want to do very simply.
Well, I will say I agree with what you're saying that receivers need to always become easier. In the last 10 years, they have. In 2010,
not a ton, but
the Denon receiver manual was written by throwing up different individually written sections and up into the air, and as they fell, you would stack those up and then send them to the printer in that order.
Right.
That's how it was done.
And it was written by people that had never spoke English in their lives.
Well, not just spoken. They only spoke math. It's not like they spoke a different language. They were engineers who only spoke math, and it made sense to them and nobody else. Now, you plug in your Odyssey mic, your receiver automatically goes into the Odyssey setup mode. It walks you through everything you're supposed to do, though there are some things that if you listen to this podcast, you'll do better. But you will still get a decent result if you just wing it with what they've told you to do, and you will get your receiver set up that way, and it will tell you, hey, this is the speaker that's supposed to be playing, and if it's not the speaker that's playing, then you know you've wired something incorrectly.
Sure.
But the wiring part of it, I still believe, is a complete disaster. I think it's so hard to wire your speakers correctly because there's not so hard. It's easy, but it's also not very easy. And when you're working behind a cabinet someplace and you're trying to get through all this stuff, I do agree that our receivers need to get easier.
If you want to make a really mass market successful receiver, it needs to be smaller and slicker. And again, kind of like what Bose does, except if you could make it sound good.
Yeah.
Just some way where like everything's just easy, color coded. It doesn't look intimidating and ugly. It fits, neatly into the room.
Yamaha made a receiver, and I don't have it anymore. I don't know what I did with it, but it was like that. It was super built. It had all this assistant technology in there to help you walk you through everything. It was smaller. It looked more like an Xbox than an actual receiver. My parents used it for a while. Didn't have very much power, but that was okay because they didn't really need it. And I thought that technology was going to go from that receiver into their receivers, into that like sort of test thing, and then migrate over. It never did. And I can't tell you why, because it was fairly easy to understand. It kind of walked you through everything, but it never got there.
Whoever does that first, whoever does it well, is really going to jump out ahead of the others. I think they're stuck in a rut as far as style and thought process and the way receivers work. Somebody's got to come out with something that you plug it in and it immediately just starts talking to you through your phone and walks you through the steps. And
for a man who doesn't want a box in his house that spies on him, you sure wouldn't a lot of things that happen through your phone. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Well, because we all have a phone. I'm telling you what would be easy to sell to people. It just something that is slick, because you'd be surprised. We folks that listen to this podcast and us here doing the podcast, this doesn't seem like a big deal to us. But if you tried to ask my dad to set up a receiver, he'd set the house on fire, just out of sheer frustration. Most people, it fascinates me how few people in my life have any sort of even good audio to listen to music on, period. Like, don't even have a stereo, don't have anything in their home. They have a television, and they have their phone, and they got earbuds, and they got a car stereo, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Like, their car stereo is their best audio. That's most people in America. And so if you can make this easier, more people will buy it. It is intimidating to the average person.
So, I see this going into our next predictive conversation, which is room correction. Like, I see room correction as yes, I think that what's happened with room correction is so far it's pretty mature. There's not a whole lot else we can do about it. But what I mentioned before with being able to put speakers wherever you want, and the room correction or the setup will automatically recognize where all your speakers are. And what you're saying with receivers is just plug the dang things in.
Yeah.
And then let it figure out which speakers are plugged into which places. And then it doesn't matter at that point. Yeah. It doesn't matter how many speakers you have. Then, like, hey, can you place a speaker high? You'll put a couple of speakers high. Okay, are they not in the optimal locations? No problem. I know where that is in relation to everything else. I know how I can set up phase between these different speakers because we've got the processing power to do that now. Why aren't we able to do that? Is that something that, I mean, to me, I think that would be a selling point for receivers in the future.
We need better programmers.
Sure.
That's what we need. Yeah.
Sure.
Somebody get some people from Google together with people from Yamaha.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would help.
Wouldn't hurt. The real problem usually when we talk to receiver manufacturers is cost.
Right.
The cost of having the chips that can do that into these receivers significantly increases how much that receiver is going to cost the end user. And with margins as tight as they are, you're putting that kind of processing power in there. Maybe
I think it's more about the people. It's the programmers. People cost a lot of money too.
Sure.
And because, for instance, there are $300 receivers are enough for most people as far as features for most people. And if you made that a $500 receiver because it was really super cool and easy to do the room correction and easy to place your speakers and it all made sense and had a slick interface with your phone, I think people would buy that. I think. I probably would, or I would recommend it to people who don't already have something.
So when we see, we're talking about receivers, but are receivers always going to be here? We've already got TVs that can decode, and we've had this. TVs, we've had sound bars, we've had other boxes that can decode, do all the decoding. All you really need is an amplifier. It can, your TV has your apps on it, right? And the apps can get all the immersive audio, all the HDR, all the different stuff, and send it down to a sound bar that has an HDMI, so an ARC or EARC in this case, audio return channel, HDMI down to your sound bar. Your sound bar then has wireless surrounds, or even wired, but let's say wireless surrounds that are available. Your soundbar then sends that out and decodes it locally into what it needs to do, and then now you don't need a receiver. Is this the last decade where receivers are going to be I don't want to say imperative, but an integral part of your home theater? Like, you can't have a home theater if you don't have a receiver.
I think it will maintain its position for quite a long time. You could theoretically, like a sound bar kind of becomes a receiver in a lot of situations. You could maybe make a center channel speaker that was kind of like a receiver, but something has to have the amps. I guess you could move those out to the speakers, but then you're running, low voltage signal cables out to each speaker. Something's got to be the switch box, and TVs are ever thinner. There's no place to put all this stuff in a TV.
Sure.
So there's got to be some kind of box that's the heart of it all that things come into and come out of. So, yeah, there's going to be receivers for a very long time. They may not look like the same old black boxes we've had for 30, 40 years, but something's got to be the switch box.
So I agree with you there, but I I would not be surprised if receivers as we know it, the big black box with the two knobs on the front, where you plug all your speakers into and everything else, I think we are going to see those start to go away in this next decade. I think that self-powered speakers for surrounds with WiSA or other wireless technology to connect to a central, one central box, which that box has drivers in it. Could be a center channel, could be your Blu-ray or whatever, your source box, whatever. And those things will all work together, and then it will come out from there. The amps are built into the speakers. All you need to do is get the signal to them. To me, I feel like that is the direction we are moving. I
suppose for surround sound speakers, it's technically slightly easier to plug them into an AC outlet than to run speaker cables to them. In a lot of people's cases, in homes, apartments, things where you can't install long speaker cable runs, maybe that's easier. It still is difficult if you want those speakers up higher.
That's true,
because the AC power cord's got to go somewhere. So I don't see it replacing every case, but yeah, just wireless surround speakers will probably become easier, more prominent. But again, I just can't picture something where you don't have a box where things come into it to make decisions.
I don't feel like I don't feel like we're that much different in age. I think I'm older than you, but boy, I don't sound like it right now.
No, I think I'm older than you, and that may be why I can't. But no, I get you. You can do things a lot differently. Things move slowly sometimes in these industries, and things need to be standardized. But yeah, you can do it without a conventional receiver for sure. But something's got to be your switch box. That's all I'm saying.
So right now, I mean, and this is a conversation I had when I was on the AV Home. I don't remember what it was called. The other podcast, Tim Albright's podcast. And we were talking about power over Ethernet.
Yeah.
Which is something that I didn't, at the time, I wasn't aware was a thing. They had to talk to me about it. But I don't have any home security cameras at my house. I just don't live in a neighborhood where I feel a lot of my neighbors do, because they're all neurotic psychos as far as I'm concerned. They're like, oh my God, my car got broken into. I'm like, your car did not get broken into. You left the car unlocked.
Right.
And the doors open, and somebody went in there and stole some of your stuff. That's not a break-in. That's you invited them over, and they took some stuff home.
We get that here too.
Yeah.
We get little teenagers come around 3:00 in the morning, and they open your car door, and if you're dumb and leave cash and guns and other valuables in there, it gets stolen. Yeah. In my car's case, they opened my car, and they found cassettes and a foam clown nose, and they ran away.
They're like, oh my God, it's Gacy.
What's going to happen here? Run, go.
They found a machete, a clown nose, and some duct tape.
Close.
So, I don't have, but those cameras are all powered over Ethernet. You just plug, you just run Ethernet cable to them, which is cheap as chips. They're coming up with more and more ways to send power over Ethernet. So now running Ethernet is just as easy as running speaker wire. So
that's true.
If we can run power, and it's low voltage, so you don't have to worry about running Romex in your wall and everything else. So I don't know how they do it. But they, you can run, if you could plug your speaker into Ethernet, and the Ethernet gave it the power it needed to run its amplifier. Now you're talking about back to one cable, which is either running the power or the sound. In this case, both.
Yeah. At some point, you got to run a wire, either from the floor up to the speaker, or kind of have to twist tie it to a speaker stand or something. There's always going to be some kind of wire, because power is power. Unless we have massive breakthroughs in battery technology, such that batteries last for eons, and you can just have a speaker floating up on your wall with a battery in it and a receiver.
Right.
Maybe that could happen one day, but that's not coming in the next decade, I don't think. We're still going to have better batteries, but not anything that magic. And you don't want to be having to recharge your speakers that are 4 or 6 feet up the wall, every so often. So something's got to be a wire, AC power cord, Ethernet.
It's either that or you make everything inductive charging and make sure that there's an inductive charge available for, on every surface of your house.
What, I'm just going to have a Tesla coil in my attic charging everything and like my hair standing straight up?
Your hair is already standing straight up.
Why do you think it's doing that? It's all the stuff in this house.
It's all that she who should not be named listening to me. This is my warning.
This is all sheer anger points my hair straight up. I hate so many things in this world. It lifts my hair up.
So while it does not apply directly to AV, I think it has a lot of implications to everything in our life, including AV, and that is quantum computing.
True.
So for those of you that don't know, quantum computing, I'm sure many of our listeners are already familiar with this technology. But the idea here is that two particles, in essence, are entangled, right? So in normal computing, it's binary. It's either a 1 or a 0. Those are your two options. But with quantum computing, you have the ability to entangle two objects. So you now have, it could be one could be off, one could be on. That's two. So,
as I understand it, that's a roundabout description.
Yeah.
But okay,
it's not. I'm not a physicist.
Not exactly
like my cousin.
But okay.
If you have a better description, give it to us. I would hate to have us not.
No, I mean that's about there. And the whole concept being it's not just a 0 or a 1. It can be every state in between all at once.
Right.
It is incredibly complicated.
So the idea
but
here,
apparently you can run an algorithm through a quantum computer in some way that's a zillion times faster than a regular computer.
Yeah, so
that's what it boils down to.
What it boils down to is computational speed. Once quantum computing becomes a thing, is going to skyrocket. What it takes. Our best computers right now, and I know I'm sounding like I'm in the 70s, and I remember my dad had his business got or the company he worked for, the plant he was at, they got a computer, and it had like 64K of memory or whatever of computational power or whatever, and that took a room. That was a room of transistors and other things that were doing that. And then, a couple of years later, I have a Commodore 64 at home,
That's right.
in a box. So,
but
that's what we're talking about.
That rate of change is slowing now.
It is.
We're reaching the limit of what we can put on silicon.
Yeah.
So eventually maybe we'll have graphene chips or something like that with some optical stuff happening. But for a while, things are going to be pretty similar. But yeah, if you can get quantum computers kicked in, they're always going to need, for the longest time, they're going to need super cooling to work.
Yes.
So it's not going to be something you're having your own computer at home. But I guarantee if you come back 25 years from now, most computing will be done by large quantum computers out in the world, and your computer will be a dumb terminal to this supercomputer somewhere out there. And it will be able to run absolutely anything, within reason. That'll just, your phone, your computer, you may not even have much of a CPU in your computer anymore. Just enough to communicate to the supercomputer.
And the implications of this in AV, again, go back to a lot of the things that we've been talking about, which is cost for AV receivers and the ability to do the processing that you need for room correction and decoding all that stuff. Suddenly, is not necessarily as expensive as it was if quantum computing becomes a thing.
I don't know. I think that kind of stuff is very simple locally. To me, what's going to happen in the future, and I'm talking more like a 25, 30 to 50 year, one day, quantum computers could generate entertainment for you on the fly in super virtual reality. You could travel to the past in your vision. You could feed it a VHS tape from the 80s. It would recreate the scene with AI and put you in the middle of it. Or if you didn't like maybe little sensors go on your head and you don't like how this movie's going, and so it changes the plot midstream and it starts happening differently.
So every movie's going to end up Die Hard, is what you're telling me. Because
every movie will be different for every person.
Yeah.
At some point in the future, quantum computers are going to be so much more powerful and faster. that it will. I don't think it's going to quite be the whole like singularity. I'm not like a Ray Kurzweil kind of guy or whatever his name is, who thinks all of a sudden there's going to come a moment where the computers take off and are so much smarter than us and we don't understand them anymore and it solves all our problems. But it's going to be pretty amazing in the future. It's just we're in a lull right now because the technology we have in all our computers at home, we're reaching the limits. The size of the transistors, they're having trouble making them smaller, down from 10 nanometers to like 7. You start getting all kinds of weird quantum tunneling effects and irregularities, and it so that, you know, like I think 10 or 15 years ago, another friend of mine predicted like, oh, I'll have like a terahertz chip by the time we get to 2020. Well, that was a misunderstanding of how things get faster and faster, you know, because that person's chips kept getting faster, you know. Oh, it was a megahertz, and now it's a gigahertz, and now it's 4 gigahertz. Clearly, it'll be a zillion billion mega. No, it's not how it works. But it's going to be very different. A quantum computer. I don't know if quantum computing will directly affect the home theater experience, but it sure could affect the content.
So
that'll be neat.
Voice control. Voice control is something that, you know, we're tangentially talking about when we're talking to our home boxes or, you know, our phones or whatever. But you know, I think we can all look back at Star Trek and saying computer and having the computer be able to work things out for us and just speak in a plain language, and you know, we're not there. I mean,
no, we're not.
We're not even close. I still will come home from the grocery store and I'll say to the kids, "Who put mud benders on the list?" Because I don't know. I don't know what a mud bender is, and I don't know what aisle to look for it on. And I would like to make sure that you get the proper amount of mud in your diet. And they're like, "We didn't do it." I'm like, "Well, what of you people did?" Because I'm pretty sure the dog didn't do it. But you know, we're not there yet. But in the next,
that's where those quantum computers will help, when things finally get so fast and much smarter that you can just talk normally. Because that's the thing. It's not that you can't, like this $500 TV I was telling you about. It's got a little googly button on the remote that I'm not going to use. I'm not going to say you have to learn to speak TV today.
Right.
In the future, the TV will just understand you however you talk.
So is that something that you're looking forward to?
Kind of. When it's that slick.
So you'll give up your privacy as long as it's slick, is what I'm hearing.
Boy, it would have to be pretty amazing. I mean, it would have to be the equivalent of having a person in the room with you, understanding what you say and just doing what you want. You know, we all really just want that robot from the Jetsons to clean the house. We all want help with the things we don't want to do. That's what humans want. And I don't want to have to change the way I talk to my machines. I do it sometimes when I don't feel like texting because my thumbs are clumsy. I talk to my phone and it does voice recognition. But in most cases, the voice speaking to devices doesn't get the job done quicker than my hands poking a button. But one day it will. And maybe when it's that slick, I finally give in and start talking to the great AI in the sky.
You see, but the way you're describing it, you know, it always has to be online.
It would have to be.
Yeah,
it kind of would have to be.
I don't think that that's going to be the case. I think in the next, and I still have that problem with She Who Should Not Be Named. If I ask for something and she's not online, then a lot of times she'll misunderstand what I'm saying or will not be able to give me what I want. I asked for a channel to be played on Pandora, and it was like, "You don't have that channel." I'm like, "Yeah, I do. Shut up." Like, "Oh yeah, no, you don't have that channel." And I asked her 2 or 3.
Yeah, like she's suddenly really dumb.
Yeah. All of a sudden,
she's not connected.
She's dumb as rocks. And I'm like, "Yeah, I got that channel." And then, you know, a couple of minutes later, I did it again, and sure, no problem. Yeah, let me play that channel.
I don't think that's going to change for a very long time. I think because the supercomputers that are running those listening algorithms, it's always going to be too much for the local computer. They're always going to be faster than your home computer, than your box. So I think that's just how it's going to be. I think connections to the internet are more stable than they used to be. I've seen your picture break up here on my screen, but we're taking for granted now that most things stay on. I hate Comcast, but generally I'm connected to the internet. I think that'll only improve in the future, especially data. My data on my phone, 4G and eventually 5G, stays connected forever. I don't know if I've ever not been able to get 4G, even after like a terrible tornado we had a long time ago. So always on connections, that's just going to be part of life in the future for these fancier, especially AI things. I don't see how you do good AI and talking computers with personalities without supercomputers somewhere.
So speaking of fancy technology everywhere, there's drones flying in formation outside of someplace right now.
God, that's creepy. The drones flying in formation are super creepy.
Dude, that's such a Reddit thing. I swear there's somebody on 4chan right now, or 8chan, getting that whole thing together, and that's got to be what's going on out there. It's just,
are there higher chans I can look at? Because I don't like 4, 8.
I think 9. They just get worse the deeper you go. I think it's like
there's like a 42 chan with like the answer to the universe.
Yeah, the answer to the universe is, all your memes are us. But are we gonna? Is life in the next decade gonna be full of drones? Are we gonna be having drones? I mean, Amazon experimented with delivering stuff with drones, and everybody got all bent out of shape about it, and then they stopped. But we've got self-driving cars, which are basically drones. We've got self-driving cars in the future. We've got drones flying in formation wherever the hell they're doing that. We've got I know the government and the police and stuff. We just had that drone strike that might have started World War III.
Well, those drone strikes are still people using remote controls.
Right.
It's not the drone deciding. But I think if we're still doing this 10 years from now, there will definitely be self-driving cars in most instances. Maybe not pulling into parking places very well. You're probably still going to have steering wheels in 10 years, no problem. But there's going to be a lot of self-driving vehicles. And I think eventually, it's probably going to take longer, but why wouldn't there be drones delivering packages? It depends on if they can make them cheap enough to grab one box at a time. That's the thing. Trucks hold hundreds of boxes, and drones can really only hold a few. So I don't see how it helps a lot. Unless you want to really pay extra, you could do it. So big cities will probably, I bet in New York City in 10 or 15 years, you'll always be able to look up and look around in your field of vision and find at least one drone.
Oh, I bet it'll be way worse than that. I think it'll be swarms of them.
I don't know about the swarms, because it still costs money. It's still energy involved. You still have to charge batteries. It's still.
So that's one of the things that you've mentioned more than once, and it's probably bears to be repeated or at least focused on here, is battery technology. Battery technology is going to be the building blocks upon which most of this technology that we're talking about will have to function. Therefore, advances in battery technology is one of the most important things that we can address.
Yeah, what are the ceramic lithium batteries? I think those are the next big thing. They're
the
flat
NiCad batteries of the NiCad batteries of the early 2010s, you gotta expend the entire charge before you recharge it, and
that was exhausting.
Don't leave it charged in, plugged in all the time, because you'll break the battery or something. And now we've got lithium ion batteries, and those plug them in all the time. You don't have to expend them if you don't want to. It
doesn't nearly matter as much.
Yeah,
but there are battery technologies coming where the battery stores more energy than even lithium ion.
Yeah,
and they're safer and they're smaller. That battery technology is everything. Whoever can invent the better battery is the richest corporation in the world. Yeah. Tesla is like pushing that like crazy because of their cars. And
they've got the whole home battery. And I know people right now who this kid goes to school with my kid, and his dad's Egyptian, and he's got family members that they're creating villages out in the desert. That they couldn't have ever done before, because they've got the Tesla batteries, they've got solar panels, they've got lots of sunlight.
Boy, do they!
They just didn't have any way of getting power out there to where these places were, and now they can, and they're self-sufficient in that way. And the battery technology is what made that happen, not the solar.
Yeah, I think probably 20, 25 years from now, real estate listings will include your power source, power generation, power storage numbers. It'd be like 3-bed, 2-bath, 20 kilowatt panels, and how many watt hour storage battery you have. That'll be a normal part of a house. Will be like that. I hope anyway, because clean energy there really is global warming. I hope that doesn't disappoint any listeners, but we got to do something. We can't just keep doing the same thing and burning stuff constantly. All of our technology is just burning stuff. You realize when you get down to it, internal combustion engine, coal-fired power plants, gas, most of the stuff is just burning things to create steam. That's how we make electricity. Even a nuclear power plant just makes steam in terms of steam turbine. But eventually, it will be different in most separated homes, or even apartment buildings might have solar panels on top, because those prices are just going to come down. I don't think most people have noticed that coal has gone away.
We have a coal plant right here in town, so you're talking to the wrong guy.
Right, so you see it all the time. Yeah. But in as far as a percentage of our energy creation,
it's way down.
It's almost gone away. Yeah. Natural gas came in and other sources, and solar panels keep getting cheaper, and I don't think people are noticing how many windmills are going up that don't cause cancer, and how many solar panels are coming up on roofs, battery technology. So yeah, in 10, 15, 20 years, the landscape will look different on that. And you won't notice power outages from the grid as much.
So are we going to have either more screens or more VR? Are we going to have wraparound screens? Are we going to have, multiple displays? Like we always see that in like future stuff. There's always like one main display and like multiple displays around it so people can consume multiple things. I mean, we've got that, don't we?
Just walk into my living room and look at my wife sitting on the couch in the evening at about 5 o'clock.
I feel like you would probably yell if I did that. I would be
surprised, but as long as we were all dressed, that would be fine. But there's a 65-inch OLED in front of her. There's a tablet to her left, and there's her phone to her right, and a book in her lap. So we already have multiple screens. People seem to like that. We like that secondary screen. We're like, yeah, I'm kind of half-ass watching TV, but I'm really talking to my friends and playing Words with friends and checking Facebook. And I've noticed we like to stop everything and look up who that actor is, that sort of thing. So yeah, there'll be multiple screens, but I don't think we're going to have that sort of Jetson situation where like the house just looks completely different and two of the walls in this room are televisions. I don't think that's coming anytime soon, because humans are humans and we like human textured stuff. I don't think we all want every surface to be glowing and be a screen. I don't think that'll ever be the case. We always want drywall, wood, carpet, wood floor. You know what I'm saying? Like we need to live in things that feel like human beings.
So I'm thinking about that episode of Black Mirror where there's screens everywhere, and right. If they would show shows and the commercial would come on, and if the guy closed his eyes, the commercial would pause, and he'd had to watch the commercial. He had
right.
He would get in trouble, or I don't remember what it was. It's dystopian, so whatever.
Again,
but the idea of having every surface around you be capable of displaying something, is that within the next 10 years?
No, definitely not in the next 10 years. I mean, you can put a bunch of TVs in your house right now, and maybe with a lot of unrolling LCDs or OLEDs, you could put more screens. But like I was about to say, what do people want? People don't want that. You could theoretically make it happen if we all were just super desirous of every surface in our house glowing, but I don't want that. Do you? I don't know anybody that wants that. I mean, people apparently don't mind TVs being on all the time and advertising happening around them. Apparently people don't mind that. I kind of don't like it, but I don't think people want to have a barrage from every angle and it only goes away if you close your eyes.
Right.
I don't think so. So we're always going to want to be humans living in human buildings that feel like humans. Do you know what I mean? Like no matter how far in the future you come back, we're not all going to be living in chrome, glass, metal structures.
I don't know. Have you seen some of the newer designs of houses these days? Everything's gray. Well, gray is one thing. Yeah. Color is one thing. But texture and materials, we don't want to sit on plastic. Do you know what I mean? Like most people don't. We want something a little cushy. I've got plastic chairs. They're pretty comfortable.
Hard plastic chairs, yes. Maybe for a little while. But you don't watch TV in your hard plastic chairs, do you?
That is true.
You don't relax in your hard plastic chairs. You might be sitting outside or something, and it has to be plastic to survive the weather. But I don't know. I'm sort of optimistic that people will draw the line where it starts to make them feel bad or unpleasant. And even in the most modern, super modern high-rise apartments, people still put cushy rugs and comfy couches, and they like to have some wood that they can see. So we're never going to be Minority Report.
Those cars seem pretty reasonable, to be honest with you, aside from every one of them being the Lexus. So the Internet of Things, I hate saying that, the Internet of Things, people love talking about it, but the idea of smart devices and everything that we have that's smart. I used to make jokes at the beginning of this decade about how your toaster has Netflix in it. But it's actually, we've gotten away from it. Things have gotten a little bit more targeted. You no longer have Netflix and things that didn't really have a way of displaying Netflix, but they were there anyways because Netflix was in everything and it helped sell stuff. But the Internet of Things, how everything is interconnected, how I did not get this model of washing machine, but when I upgraded my washing machine, because my last one died, when I upgraded it, if I had bought the one model whatever higher, the one more expensive, which I did not buy, it would have told me, it would have connected to my phone and been able to tell me when it was done, and then I could also reprogram it, and everything else. I'm like, I don't know. I had a friend who's they're looking to move, and he's been looking at appliances, and he's like, oh man, there's this thing where the refrigerator, you can go on your phone when you're at the store and look inside your refrigerator to see if the thing that you're looking for, if you actually need it or not. I'm like, what?
No, people, no.
Is this our future? Is this the next 10 years?
Look, I can do a whole Type 5 stand-up on just toasters, because we searched for a toaster several years ago, and it must have been at the height of let's make everything have additional features phenomenon, and we could not find a toaster that would fit on the counter. Like, it was hard enough to find one that only did 2 slices. And then we couldn't find one that didn't have 6 other buttons. I just want to push the thing down, you apply heat to my bread, pop it up. That's all I needed to do, and we couldn't find it. And we still have a toaster from like the early 90s.
Right.
Because it's the only one that did that. And it's hard enough to plan meals. Like, we cook more than the average American by a long shot. Heather and I do. And we find it hard enough to sit down once a week, like maybe on a Sunday, and write down 4 or 5 dinners and just decide what we want, and then see what we need to buy. I don't see how cameras inside my fridge help that. If you already waited till you got to the grocery store to pick out what you're going to buy, you are doing it way wrong. Absolutely, Russell. It just doesn't help.
I mean, at this point, we're looking at, we're now talking about an Internet of Things where you're at home and you say to your home assistant, I'm thinking about making mushroom masala and maybe some spaghetti and tacos this week, and your assistant says okay, and your drone delivers the ingredients that you're missing from the things it knows you don't have in your house because it has cameras in your refrigerator.
I guess, but something's got to see all the products go in the fridge, come out of the fridge, partially used, go back in the fridge. Something's got to watch every angle of that. And that just, I don't know. I mean, one day, because we all want some kind of digital slave to do everything for us. So if we
I don't want
a
digital, I don't want any kind of slave, but I wouldn't mind a little assistance.
I'm sorry, assistant. We want something to do everything for us and do our bidding. That's what we want. We want something else to do the laundry. We want something else to cook. We want to be those heavy humans in Wall-E that are on like the space cruise ship and they're just sucking down the big Slurpees and they're sitting there doing nothing. We all want to do, we don't want to do any of those difficult tasks, but it's going to be a while before doohickeys can do these things. And if they can, if I can literally say, hey, computer, list for me the kinds of things I like and let me pick a few things I like, and it'll start telling me some recipe. That sounds good.
What haven't I made recently? And it listed off for you.
For it to do that, it's just the same problem with any other database that's happened for decades. the only thing it can keep track of is what you're willing to put in all the time. You have to type in everything, right? So the information has to go into something, which means something has to watch everything you're eating, everything you're buying, everything you're putting. It's possible, but it's going to be a while. In 10 years, we're still going to be making grocery lists. I'm certain of that. There'll be very little change to the way we cook.
So let me to piggyback off of what you just said right there. Okay, so let's say I envision the future not so long from now where, yes, all these things are what I just described was possible. Just tell me the things that I haven't eaten recently that I might be interested in making. So it's got a database of things I have made. It would not be hard for it to know that. It would just have to know what I looked up on my phone. It would
you have to tell it somehow, or it has to figure out what you cooked.
What I actually cooked, right? And
it could
actually, let's say that it does have access to the contents of my pantry and the contents of my refrigerator,
and whether you liked it.
Well, that's true. So, and if it's got a history of what things I have eaten more than once, that would tell it something. Then, when I went to a restaurant, which it could track by knowing where my phone was, all it would take is a pop up. What did you have for dinner tonight? Did you have this? No. Did you have this? No. Did you have this? Yes. Okay. Now it knows what I had there. And Google does that to me anyways, right? Google does that right now. It'll say, hey, how did you like such and such a place? And I'll say it was fine, or 5 stars or whatever. And then it'll say, is there parking there? Oh, yes, there is. Oh, is there, you went to an Oriental, MD Oriental, which is a market here. Did they have live fish? Yes, they do. So that sort of stuff happens. Pretty soon, that database is not that hard to come up with. And I think we could be seeing stuff like that in the next 10 years.
I guess, but does the act of answering all those questions save you any time compared to just remembering where the hell you went and what you liked? I don't find that like that difficult to pick stuff. What I don't feel like doing is sitting down and making the list and doing the actual shopping and then bringing it back home and putting it in the fridge.
See, that's the part I do like.
I need a robot. I don't need AI. I need just a physical robot to go do the things I don't want to do. And maybe one day that happens, or maybe we're getting there, right? You can order a lot of food, but then we're going to get into the whole topic of food and how ordering food is never as good as cooking food for your health and so on and so forth.
That is not, well, that's not necessarily true, but I think food made for you by somebody else almost always tastes better than food you made for yourself. But that's
not around here.
That's just me.
And you cook really well. What are you talking about?
I know, but if I make a peanut butter sandwich and somebody else makes a peanut butter sandwich, their peanut butter sandwich, as long as they use the same ingredients I did, almost always tastes better. I'm sorry.
Okay, sure. It's the same thing where like free food tastes better than expensive food. Yes. Okay, I get where you're coming from.
All right. Well, these have just been some of our predictions for the future and our look back at the last 10 years. I just want to say thank you to Lee Overstreet for joining us today. Thank you very much, Lee.
Oh, no problem. I love it every single time, and I've been at this helping you guys now for 7 years. The first time I did it was 2013, I think.
There you go. Wow,
that's crazy.
That's insane.
At 10 years, surely I get to review a speaker.
Well, we could talk about maybe getting you some subs. That's about that.
That's right. At 10 years,
you're not getting any more speakers until you get some damn subs, Lee.
That's it. Okay, so yeah, sometime between now and 3 more years, somebody send me a sub.
Yeah, we'll see.
And I'll do a beautiful review of it.
All right. If you want to get your question answered on this podcast, all you have to do is ask us by emailing us at question@avrant.com. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andrew.
And I'm Lee Overstreet. Go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.